2016 minutes. Do we have any comments for the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one comment? I don't know who did the minutes this time around, but I liked there was a little bit more detail in there. That was, I mean, we have the recordings, but I thought it was, I thought it was a good depiction of the meeting without getting verbatim. And again, we've had different examples with maybe too much information and then not enough. So I thought it was a good balance. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Chair votes yes. Those are approved. Okay, we do have two public hearings on. One is Chelmsford Street, and the other one is Emerson Ave. We've received the request to continue Emerson Ave, so I'd like to take that one first. 14 Emerson Ave is a definitive subdivision. An application by Emerson Ave Realty Trust seeking definitive subdivision approval for their proposal to create two lots, with each featuring a single-family dwelling with required frontage located in Dracut. The parcels are located in a traditional single-family zoning district. We did receive a letter from the applicant requesting that we would continue the matter to May 16th. I think there was a question on whether there was adequate notice sent out to all the abutters, though there is a request to continue to May 16th. Was the request of the board.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to continue.
Second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Matters, go ahead. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, I'll be abstaining on that matter. so.
Okay,
All right, next meeting.
okay, so we do have 5 in favor to continue that to May 16th, which I think is going to be a very busy meeting. I think we have about 4 or 5 things on now. Okay, so getting back to the other matter, it is the 374, 386 Chelmsford Street, is a site plan review. And an application by Geoff Smetcham Chair, seeking site plan review and special permit approval to expand and upgraded the existing Domino's Pizza to create additional parking spaces and a new drive-through window. The proposed project is located in the regional retail zoning district and requires site plan review, approval under section 11.4 from the planning board, and a special permit approval from the zoning board of appeals under section, Article 12, table of uses in the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Comments, mainly in regards to access on the property. And approximately 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with city staff, including the planner, the city engineer, a member of the fire department, and the traffic engineer for the city. We had an hour-long meeting trying to work out some of the questions and concerns with access and egress from this site. At the end of the hearing, at the end of the meeting, we still had differences of opinions with the plan that I have before you tonight. We think this is the best plan moving forward. It seemed like the planning department basically supported what we came up with, and the fire department supported what we came up with. The traffic engineer for the city still would like to see one-way circulation throughout this site. What we try to do with the updated plan, one of the main concerns is with the expansion of the Domino's facility, with the apartment building next door. I graphically showed where the apartment building sits in relation to the property line. It basically sits right on the front property line. And the reason we show that is to just show there is a site distance issue if you were going to try to enter and exit just from solely that location. If we were going to have one-way circulation starting on the northerly side of the site and coming around, we felt that would be problematic. We wanted to, with the 2 curb cut layout that we do have on the northerly side, have exit and exiting traffic from that curb cut location. What I wanted to point out, and that I didn't bring up 2 weeks ago, when we met with the traffic engineers, Right now, this property consists of 2 lots of record. So the Domino's Pizza sits on one lot. There was a vacant lot that Jeff purchased. What I should have brought up 2 weeks ago is, there was a concern, he wanted one-way circulation, but if another use came onto that existing lot, they could have had 1 or 2 curb cuts on the existing vacant parcel. So with what we're doing, we're combining this all into one. There'll be a total of 2 curb cuts, and we just feel from a safety perspective, the way that we have it laid out now is the best use. When you read through department feedback, the fire department agrees with it, and the reason they agree with it is on the exit, on the northerly side, we put in a dedicated left turn lane, a right turn lane, and we also have a dedicated fire lane that will be painted on site. And the idea with that fire lane is if the fire department had to come in to the site in an emergency situation, they'd have a place to stage their equipment to fight a fire at Domino's or at the apartment building next door. So that's why the fire department supported the layout that we show now. A couple questions came up in the department memo. The existing curb cut at the site exit by the apartment building on the northerly side of the site, at the gutter line, it's 32 feet wide. At the property line, it's 23 feet wide. We're not proposing to change the curb cut at all. That's an existing curb cut, and we're looking to leave that in place. And there was a question on a dimension of the proposed painted fire lane. I can get that dimension. It's basically going to be 10 feet wide, which the fire department thought was sufficient. It's basically going to be 10 feet wide by about 28 feet in length. I think I'll turn it over to the departments to see if there's any feedback or if the city planner would like to add anything that I might have missed from our department meeting a couple weeks ago. But I know one thing that will come up at this hearing is there's a big concern where this is going to be a commercial use behind the apartment building, which is a residential use. We're basically having traffic flow through our site to access that residential apartment unit. There's really no way around it. You can see the apartment building sits up front, there's parking in back, but it's landlocked. There's nowhere else, there's no other access off another street, there's no room for an easement to get into that area. Luckily, my client owns both properties. He has ownership of the Domino's and he owns the apartment building complex, so he has control over both sites presently. I know there'd be a concern moving forward how to maintain rights to that parking area behind the apartment building if he ever sold one or the other. It's not an issue right now. I guess in the future it could be. We agree it's not an ideal situation, but the only other thing would be to close that off, close the parking lot off now, fence it on the Domino's side, but that would force people to park on street from that, which isn't something people want to see either. So I think at this point where he has control over both properties and he can kind of oversee how the lots will be used, we feel the way we laid it out now is probably the best way to move forward without forcing people to park on the street or put any sort of easements over the property. But I'll leave that up to the board for any discussion. The only other change, I think one of the planning board members mentioned is previously we had showed arborvitae as the screening plantings, and we changed that. We showed 3 different types of evergreen style trees that could be used for screening. All other elements of the design are the same. I did relocate the dumpster and recycling bins slightly and change one of the landscaped islands. One comment came back, there was a concern trying to empty the trash bins, so I slightly relocated the dumpster and recycling bin and changed one of the islands just to ease access. and I'll turn it over to the board for any questions they might have.
Okay, thank you. Before I turn over to the board, I'll speak, anybody here this evening also would like to speak in regards to this project? Anybody else want to be heard? In favor, or against? Come on up and speak. We don't know that. We don't know who you are, we don't know what your concerns are, so you come to the microphone.
I didn't expect to speak, but my name is Jeff Schembeckler. I'm the owner of the property. And I've owned and operated the Domino's Pizza store there for a little more than 10 years. Purchased the property next door from Sandra Fishman, who has since passed away. And I also own the apartment building next door, which when I purchased 374 Chelmsford Street, the fence continued all along the property line, and I opened that up so that tenants could park behind the apartment building and not on the street. I don't really have a prepared statement, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have for me.
Okay. Well, I'll continue with, seeing if anybody else wants to speak, then I'll turn it over to the board, and if they have any questions, I'm sure they'll ask you accordingly.
For the record, I am strongly in favor of this project moving forward.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else want to speak this evening? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, at this point in time, I will turn it over to the board members. Anybody want to go first? Mr. Boyle, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question actually is for, I guess we can start with the applicant. What is your concern about the one-way proposal? Why won't that work?
The one-way proposal, it's more of a safety concern, okay? And it's our concern, let me see. And in fact, the fire department was against the one-way proposal as well. But with the two-way proposal, the idea is the right-hand portion of the site or the southerly portion of the site, all those parking spaces will basically be for restaurant use. And the properties on the left, the parking spaces on the left-hand side, you'll see we designated them as employee spaces. And then we're thinking people coming in or out of the apartment complex, they can come out and exit out the way that we have it marked. Typically, that's what they'll do. What we were concerned with is if it was going to be two-way where we have the exit now, that would present a problem with sight distance with the building. And if it was just totally one-way, it really was just more of a safety concern for the apartment users behind trying to get in and out of this complex.
I don't understand why. Why would having a one-way entrance and no exit on the southern curb cut present a safety issue for the apartment
I'll let
complex?
Jim help me out with this.
The discussion, Jim Jazokis, project architect, the fire chief had an issue where if we were to force the majority of people to flow through that left side parking area, that could cause a congestion at the most inopportune time if there was ever emergency at the building itself or the sixth family next door. So to vacate all that traffic and in such an emergency where they're forced to go that way would cause a headache for the fire department to get to the three sides that they like to get to when on a particular building such as this. There's a telephone pole right at that intersection, so that creates the major issue for the fire department, whereas they cannot bring the ladder up. They have to actually dismount the ladders and get the people out from a physically carrying the ladders over to the building itself. So that is the main safety concern. And it's just basic nature for people to leave the way they came in. And so people tend to just, even myself, just disregard anything that says do not enter, or whatever. I came in that way, I'm leaving that way, it's big enough, I'm going.
There is no drive-through proposed for this building. Is there?
There,
There's a pickup.
there is a pickup window, which is similar to the other stores, the Domino's. I don't know if you've noticed on the commercials, they've been pitching this concept. It's not so much of a key up to a kiosk, you put your order in, drive around, pick it up. It's more of your smartphone notifying you that your pizza is ready.
Yep.
And then you drive over or walk over to the window, grab your pizza, and then go.
See,
So there's no, like, there would be never more than, 3 cars? Jeff could answer more to that, but
that's kind of a difference. Is it drive up to the window, or is it park and walk up to the window?
I believe it's set up for both.
Okay, look,
But the,
because I look at the plan, and it looks like there's 5 feet concrete walk all the way around the building.
That's right.
yes,
Okay, so you can't be, so it wouldn't be a drive-up with a 5-foot concrete walk in between your car and the window?
That's off to, the pickup window extends 5 feet out, so.
Oh, okay.
You see how that works, so.
Okay.
It's,
okay, it's not, yeah, it's not clear on the, I see a question.
I see,
Let me,
okay. That's at the front of the building, is the pickup window? Okay, I see.
See how there's the 5-foot proposed addition?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Can talk about that some more. Okay, an issue I had, going by the site, I noticed that on either side of your northern curb cut, where the sidewalks are currently concrete, and you're proposing not to replace that, you're just replacing the bituminous.
along the site frontage.
Yeah, along the site frontage, it's mostly bituminous, and you're proposing to replace that, but a few feet on either side of your curb cut there is, it's currently concrete, and it's currently in extremely poor condition, I was noticing. I believe that as a condition of this, that the applicant should provide concrete sidewalk to city standards across the entire frontage of his property. Not just replace the asphalt portion, the concrete section. And when I say it's in poor condition, eyeballing it, it looks like the type of damage that is done to concrete by rock salt during the winter. And it's not just the normal wear and tear of sidewalks developing cracks from public usage. It's somewhat unlikely that anyone else came up and salted the sidewalk in front of your client's business. So I think it would be appropriate to provide walkable surface across the entire frontage.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
We're proposing from the northerly curb cut, everything to the right's gonna be replaced with concrete. So we're really only talking about an eight-foot stretch to the left of the entrance.
Okay, you're already proposing to go all the way to the curb cut with new
All the way
concrete?
all the way to
Yes.
Burger King.
Right, all the way to
Yes,
Burger
no.
King, yeah, but,
Existing big con sidewalk to be replaced with a cement concrete sidewalk to city standards. So we along the entire frontage, we're already proposing concrete. It was just to the left of the exit curb cut where the utility pole is. I didn't show anything there, if that's your
Yes.
concern.
Okay, yeah, it was, okay, actually, both sides of that exit are in extremely poor condition. I'm glad to hear you're already proposing new concrete sidewalk to the right as you're facing that. I thought you were just proposing to replace the asphalt
I think we'd be fine with a condition that along the entire frontage.
along the entire frontage.
concrete
Okay,
sidewalks.
Looks like it's adding maybe 20 more feet of it.
okay, that is good. Oh, another question, on your landscape lighting plan, you show, it looks like a tree and a bush in one of your parking spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces back, next to the Burger King. Is that another, is that supposed to be another, planting, bump out, or is that just,
I'd have to ask to see the landscape plan. I didn't bring that one with me, but, yeah, can you just let me know where you were talking about again?
next to the Burger King? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces up.
Oh, that, I just didn't take
That's a
those
typo?
out.
Okay.
Those should be out.
Okay,
Typo. Definitely a typo.
okay. And, your, Cape Cod berm, is that all new, or are you keeping any of it from existing?
All new.
All new, including next to the fire lane?
It'll have to be.
Okay, and, the fence between your property and the abutting residential properties, that front on Short Street, you're proposing, proposed 6-foot-high, high stockade fence.
Correct.
Is that, you know, there's a stockade fence there, it looks, the panels are in extremely poor condition. Are you just replacing the panels and keeping the poles, or will you be,
I just want to see where the existing fence was on my survey.
There's like a
Little section there. We'd end up doing a whole new stockade fence if
Oh,
we're
okay,
gonna
whole new
do,
poles and everything?
if it's in disrepair, it would be a new fence put in.
okay. All right, I like the painted, fire lane solution. One thing that it does, and, I hadn't thought of this last time, but this screen, this arborvitae screen, you know, they go in at 6 feet. They grow to 25 or 30 feet. This painted fire lane gets rid of those two arborvitae. If you'll think about it, and you'll think of the location of the apartment building, that apartment building has a lot of windows that face in that direction, which is the southerly direction, which is the sunny direction. If we had put in that arborvitae screen, in 10, 15 years, it would be a blank wall blocking off all of the southern sun exposure to the apartment building. So I think that's actually a positive development to do it this way. Oh, and congratulations on the porous pavement. I think that's a very good decision. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Ballard?
No, no questions.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you have any questions, comments?
The only thing I would like to reiterate is the request of staff that an easement be recorded for the apartment building access to that parking lot, which was in the staff comments. Other than that, I believe the safety concerns have been satisfied, as long as the fire department is satisfied. And with this design, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
You want to go next, or should?
Yeah, I have a couple of things.
Go ahead.
In the documentation that I have, which is from Christine on April 29th. The only reference to the fire department's comments was, and I'll read it, "The revised site plan dated 4/27/16 will satisfy the department's requirements." Nowhere that I have says that they're against that one-way traffic. Do you have that in writing, or what's the?
Christine might, but also Brian, who's going to be the site contractor, he had some meetings with the fire department after our initial presentation. That's how this whole idea of the fire lane came up, and that's why the department meeting was held, so that we could all sit in one room and try to work through this.
Okay, I just haven't seen anything, and I kind of tend to like that one-way
I
traffic to be consistent, but if they feel that way, then that certainly carries a lot of weight.
The comments from the fire department is what forced us to continue the first time and have that meeting with everyone on site, because Deputy Chief Charon was concerned about all the vehicles exiting out of one exit. And I do have an email from him on March 22nd stating, "After taking into consideration the proposed site plan and the overhead photo of the area, fire prevention has significant concerns regarding the fire department vehicle access to the Chelmsford Street apartment building. The vehicle congestion associated with the drive-through corridor and a one-way restriction has the potential to impede fire apparatus placement on two sides of the building in the event of a fire at 368 Chelmsford Street. We would not like to see this plan approved as is. Thank you."
Okay. That's all I had to be right.
Thank you.
If we have the letter, then that's fine. I had another question regarding, you're gonna pull up all that existing asphalt there and put down porous?
Correct.
Do you have a problem with presenting the Department of Planning and Development with a maintenance plan for that?
I have an operation and there's an operation and maintenance plan on my detail sheet, but I can provide something separately showing how
All
it
right,
would be
it's new,
maintained.
and I think,
So that on an annual basis, it's swept, and if
Right.
it needs to be vacuum cleaned.
right. You can put that in writing, and,
Yep, I can
Yeah.
provide that.
all right, I think that's important. And the other thing, you mentioned an apartment building, and again, on the documentation and plans that I have, it doesn't appear on the plans anywhere. And I think that because there's some issues surrounding that in terms of traffic and access and everything, that to look at a site plan, we should have that on the plan as well, so that we can see the relationship. No- Nothing that I have shows that,
Okay.
so I'm sure you could.
I could add, the only thing I show
Easily
is
do that.
on the existing conditions plan, which is sheet 2. It shows the building, and then it shows like where the opening is and the curb line to access the parking area behind the building, but I didn't show the parking area behind the building.
All right, okay. I think, I'd like to see that.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, I had my mic. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, also, I guess, for the record, I want to make sure the correspondence from the fire chief, the fire department, is in the minutes, because we didn't get that, or at least I don't have it in my material.
No, as long as, that's fine.
Yeah, because it appears to be a disconnect.
either.
I'll double check, but I believe it was in the original comments sent to
Okay.
the board the first time, but I'll make sure it's in the
Okay,
minutes
ma'am,
this time.
so, but did Nick see that? I guess what I'm
Yeah,
confused with is, there seems to be a disconnect between the traffic engineer and the police department, and the fire department. So that's why we got Nick's comments and DPD's comments then after the fire department, so why is there there's just a complete disagreement as to what is the
Sure.
safest?
So back when we first got the application, we had a project meeting, and one of the men couldn't make it. So we had a meeting, we discussed it, we all agreed in the one-way traffic. So I sent the site plan, I had already sent the site plan to the fire department, so just said, this is based on the comments of our project meeting, do you agree? And that's when the email I just read, where he said, no, this new proposed one-way, I don't like that. So then we had the continuance in front of you, so we could schedule a staff meeting with the applicant with all the departments involved. And that's when it came to light that the fire department their concerns with all the one-way exit. And then Nicholas, the transportation engineer, just takes issue, his concern is access management on Chelmsford Street, just that there is so many curb cuts, and he thinks that for his,
So regardless of what the fire department had to say, Nick is.
Nick is still on,
Agreement with
would
that.
prefer
Okay.
to see one-way.
Okay, I
just
just
for
want to make
access
sure there is,
management.
that he understands what the recommendation was, and they understand the recommendation that he
Yes.
had. Oh, that's interesting, okay.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
very interesting.
So we basically ended it like an impasse. We
Sure.
had like an hour-long meeting, and the traffic engineer said, I kind of stand where I stand. I looked at it, I said, well, I can make the fire department happy and the planning department happy, but I'm gonna make the traffic department unhappy. And that's why, then we said, we'll just bring it to the board,
Sure,
have a discussion, and hopefully move forward. And Nick understood that.
Right.
He said it's really up to you and your vote.
Right.
But he wanted to be on record, his concern for the one-way.
sure, no, I can respect that, okay. I just, again, I was concerned if we're making a decision where there really wasn't an understanding that there was another recommendation that came from one of those parties, but,
No, everyone is aware of where everyone stands.
okay, all right, thank you. Then, you know, trying to reconcile, in it's referenced in the letter from DPD, and looking at the zoning ordinance, the common drives. And believe me, if we can get cars off the street, understood that I'm sure the owner felt that that's a positive thing, to allow parking in the rear of the building. But, and it is a clear zoning violation, and try to, just trying to get our arms around that, you know, that 6.7.4 common driveways. Common driveways serving 2 or more residential lots are permitted only if both property owners hold an easement granting them full rights of passage over the entire area of the abutting lot over which the common drive is located. And that's even if it's residential, not, we've got separate uses here. At the very least, I think it's in the recommendation of DPD, you know, Mr. Lockhart mentioned that. I'm assuming you'd be in agreement with at least granting an easement, because if the properties are sold, right now, it makes sense because, or it works because it's in common ownership. But obviously, if one property is sold, there is somewhat of an issue there. And at the very least, I think it would be incumbent upon us to try to address that in a way that would at least, it's not going to be fully in compliance, but at least there would be a recorded easement that would give the right of tenants to pass over that property. Sure. No, it's,
This isn't something I had considered, but I certainly understand your concern, and it is an unusual circumstance to have residential traffic crossing a commercial parking lot to access their parking. But I certainly would consider that. I would want to reserve the right to consult with counsel to weigh the pros and cons before I make a commitment to that. I'm certainly not opposed to it, but I just want to make sure, I would like to consult with my attorney prior to making a decision on that, if that's acceptable to the board.
well, no, I can't speak for the other board members. I think I'd be looking for it to come out as a condition of anything here this evening, and then, you know, certainly you'd have, seek counsel advice, and you certainly could come back if you felt there was an issue with the condition, but it's still, it's not it's up to the purview of the board of whether that be maintained. I think that is I mean, part of the site plan review is to make sure we're in compliance with zoning. That is the main reason of site plan review. It's not, it doesn't give us quite the flexibility, matter of fact, of a special permit. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. We have snow storage, and we meet our setbacks, and we have proper access, safety to and from and circulating within the site. And this really falls under our zoning ordinance. So But I think that that's something that this would be the opportunity to address that. And I think what you, in a way, what you've done is certainly, I'm sure, valuable to the residents that live there, having the ability to
Certainly.
to park off-street, and certainly there is some value with that. This is just very unique. And, you know, right now, you don't have circulation through the site. I mean, I pulled in there and there was a delivery truck, and I had a hard time getting myself out of there. So actually, I think this opens it up. In I think currently, the way it exists, potentially with a delivery truck there, if there was a fire, it could probably be a worse situation than what we're looking at here. So I do believe that's an improvement, but, all right, thank you on that. And then, question for the engineer on this, on is the snow storage. I'm just looking at the snow storage area, and I'm looking at the dumpster, and you've got the screening with the stockade fence, but how exactly would you be looking to access that, you know, basically a V in there? Because, I mean, you'll be going to the zoning board of appeals for the reduction in the parking spots, and I honestly believe you'll have more than enough parking spots, or you should be adequate, but that'll be for the zoning board of appeals to
Right.
determine. But how would you conceivably get a fair amount of snow behind that dumpster, especially with the screening?
Right, he'd have to do it with a Bobcat. So I showed 2 large areas for snow storage on this site.
Right.
And the one to the rear where the dumpster is, that would be, you know, not this past winter, but the winter before. In large events, if he ever had to come in with a Bobcat or a backhoe to clear, he could put snow up behind the dumpster area.
So is that, if I'm looking at the plan where you actually have that snow storage area defined, the dotted line, and you kind of define the curbing. I'm assuming the Bobcat, would you be looking at the Bobcat coming up over that curb and then going to the rear? And then how much space is between the landscaping and the screening?
I left 10 feet
Is
between.
that 10 feet?
Yep.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Jerry.
And does the owner have a Bobcat for snow removal? Is that, well, how do you remove the snow? I mean, is there,
Mostly it's with a plow, but
Right.
if it builds up and he's in a huge storm event and has to stockpile snow like in a parking space temporarily, then he'd have to get it off-site or try to move it, and then you have to come in with different type of equipment to move it around. Because in this case with the walkways as well, Jeff, I don't know if you just have someone come and shovel them, or if, for snow operation, if they come in with various pieces of equipment.
We do it several ways. I mean, the old store had a Mammoth Road, was a very small lot, and so frequently over the winter, we would have to have it removed from the site. At this particular site, we would mostly use plows, and most winters, that would be adequate. I mean, if we needed to, we'd have a Bobcat move the snow back. But in my experience with my existing stores, and I've been doing this for 30 years, I don't see snow removal on this lot, this setup,
Right.
to be a problem.
I mean, this would be one of your larger sites as far as parking goes.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know the Mammoth Road one, I think there were 3 cars could park there.
The old
Yeah,
one,
the
yeah,
nu-
there's
the-
really no parking.
The new one looked really nice.
The
Yeah.
new one has 11 to 12 parking
Yeah.
spots,
Oh.
and this was a light winter, but we didn't have any problems at all
Right.
with snow storage on that smaller site.
Right. Okay, and then the landscaping, the shrubs that are going to be there, from a maturity standpoint, how large would they get as far as the diameter goes? I mean, I can just see that being closed in at some point, pretty tough to get back there.
Yeah, we're talking years down, but when he plants these, they'll be like 2.5-inch caliper.
Okay,
I mean, over time, they will, increase.
Right.
But that's down the road.
I would just, and although it does, I can see where you don't have one where it cuts in, I would just make sure that in the landscape design that it does maintain access to that snow storage area. I mean, really, it'll save the applicant money too. I mean, rather than having to truck it off, if you can utilize that snow storage area, that'll certainly be to the advantage of the property owner. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm just gonna follow up. My biggest concern is the common driveways on the two different zones where our zoning code says we can't do it.
Only residential.
So what's the solution to that?
I would defer to your expertise.
And my expertise would say no.
So you would make it a condition of approval.
Yeah, I mean, we just can't ignore it. So the question is, you can't have a common driveway for the apartment building and Domino's.
Commercial versus.
It's not allowed in the zoning.
Oh, I understand. And I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't have a terrific response to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that jumps out, it just says our zoning doesn't allow that, so.
I guess,
And it's brought up by planning staff clear as day in front of us. How are they gonna not share the common driveway? So you're gonna have the people in the commercial, they're gonna be driving through Domino's to get out? From their parked cars?
perhaps it might be helpful, Mr. Chairman, if I just share with you what the conversation was during our meeting with all the departments. And
Okay,
was
but I
there.
mean, let me just, okay, I know what the well,
Yeah,
you can
and
refer it,
I-
but
I,
the issue is that common driveways are not allowed in this area.
Sure.
So I'd be more than happy to hear
I don't
what any
disagree.
solutions there may be, but,
My first suggestion was that I could continue the fence along the lot line between the existing Domino's Pizza and the six-family at 368 Chelmsford Street. And that eliminates that problem, which I'd be happy to do.
okay?
And then the tenants will not be driving across Domino's Pizza property. They'll need to park in the street, but we can eliminate that problem with just a section of fence.
How many people would end up, how many units does that access?
6 units.
So you're talking anywhere as much as 6, 12, maybe more cars, right? Maybe.
I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
let me ask
currently,
you this.
8
How many bedrooms on each unit?
3.
Because we usually look at maybe 2 cars per unit is what I'm getting at,
Right.
so, just a ballpark figure.
There's about 12 bedrooms.
Okay. I mean, that's the first question I have, because that was the comment we had at the last time the matter was on the agenda. So I didn't know if that was gonna get resolved at the last meeting, but,
I would be happy to fence that parking lot off if that's a condition.
yeah, I mean,
that would
then the other question is, I know they
satisfy the
mentioned the easement part, I know you want to consider that within the council, I understand that too, because, when planning staff says to us, we don't allow these common driveways in these zones, and it's right in our regs, and it's site plan review, and it tells us we can't do it, it's pretty hard for us to say we're gonna do it anyways.
Right. Okay.
And then, if someone appeals it, we all lose. So, that's, I'm not sure what the best answer is, but, I mean, for them to be driving through that parking lot, because I think one of the comments has indicated, says, since there's not enough room for a separate lane for the abutting apartment building, a fire access lane, and an exit for the restaurant, the board needs to decide how they want the site plan to allow for the proposed use. Then it goes on and says, we don't allow the common driveways in this zone, so that's a sticky point. I mean, I think a lot of the other things, we condition, that one, I don't know. And if you need more time to think it over, consult counsel with it, want a continuance on it, regards to how the easement will work, how the fence will work, that's, up to you guys, but I don't know how we get around that. Engineering stuff is easier to fix,
Right.
That's more difficult,
Right.
being practical, I mean, if they say they want a fire lane moved or not, I know you can handle that, no problem. If you want a fence, I can handle that, you want this, I can handle that. But saying that, as I maybe move on is, now I know they're treating your drive-up area as a, what do you call, it's gonna be considered, you're gonna need a special permit for that, for the ZBA. It's considered a drive-through still, right? They're calling it?
Correct.
So from your drive-through area now, I believe on the drive-throughs, what, they need a 10-car queuing area? Would you have that?
I didn't hear what you said,
You
sorry.
need I think a 10-car queuing area to go back before it hits the street. Do you have that much room?
We don't have that.
So that's what they request under the drive-through for the queuing, a minimum of 10.
Wait, you don't?
Well, I might have, I think, actually, we probably do have it, and that's probably why we designated those 4 parking spaces as employee only on that side, because they might be in the queue, so.
I think that's the big issue they'll pick up on the ZBA, to be honest with you, but that's,
We actually,
Looks like
it
you
falls
do,
into
huh?
that drive.
we actually look at it, if it was to back out onto Chelmsford Street, we'd be way more than 10 cars, so we do have a 10-car queue.
Okay, yeah, I know that's usually one of the requests when you do a drive-through, so,
Just looking at it.
Yeah.
you know, and I guess they're considering that the drive-through, I think that's what, I know it's not the exact same typical type, but if it falls in on the zoning on that, that's what the
Right.
Board of Appeals will look at, because it says you need relief from them, excuse me, for the parking and the drive-through, so, so I don't know what you want to do in regards to the common driveway, if you want to consult counsel, do something on that or not. I don't know what the best solution is, to be honest with you. But that's just a concern I have by reading everything, all the comments, so. Those are the only comments I have at this time, so. Any other board members have any follow-up questions or comments? or-
Yeah. Christine? What was there any opinion of staff regarding that specific issue that the chairman has raised about the zoning code not allowing the dual driveway?
So we did have discussions about that, and at first, we thought that they would need to get either a waiver or a variance from the zoning board. But because that section only refers to residential driveways, that's where the idea of the access easement agreement, actually, Eric Slagle suggested that would be adequate to have because it's out there, it's existing, and we don't have exact proof, but we think it's been there for about 10 years. So that, because it's an existing site, that's sort of how we were thinking as we moved forward. That an access easement to keep it as a shared driveway.
We're calling this a shared driveway, but if you think of what is meant by a common driveway, there is a driveway. There is this physical structure that is the driveway to 2 different locations that 2 people share. What we have here isn't really that. It's this is their parking lot. This is the Domino's parking lot. And there's a hole in a fence. I think perhaps, Mr. Chairman, you said we can't just ignore it. I wonder if we can't do exactly that. If there's no physical structure that is the common driveway, if there are no legal rights recognizing it as a common driveway, if the residents of the apartment building don't have any rights, don't have an easement, it's just an at-will type of situation that the owner of the Domino's doesn't stop his neighbors from cutting across his property, gives them permission to cut across his property. Does that really turn his parking lot legally into a common driveway if there are no actual physical, if there's no actual physical infrastructure provided to make it a common driveway? If my, let's say I own a house and I have a fence, and my neighbor owns, my neighbor next door can cut 5 minutes off his walk to the store by cutting through my yard. If put a gate on my fence and I don't stop him as he cuts through, have I provided some sort of a walkway to be shown on a plan that would potentially be required to conform with the Americans with Disabilities Act? I don't think I have. I think I'm just letting my neighbor go across my property in an informal manner. I think that writing of the right of those tenants to cross the property into law, into our decision, is what could potentially make this a common driveway that violates the zoning. Whereas the owner of this Domino's not stopping his neighbors from coming across is just sort of an informal type of situation that that wouldn't legally be a common driveway. And therefore, it doesn't require us to worry about it. We would only have to worry about it if we interjected ourselves into it and started coming up with conditions granting people rights to use it. And that's how I look at this.
Mr. Chairman, may I just?
Sure.
I mean, it's an interesting thought, but getting back to site plan review, where part of the site plan review is the safety and circulation within the site and exiting and entering the site. It's a condition that we know exists. I don't think we can take an ostrich approach to this. I think we're obligated to address it. I think it's just something that we can't, it was something we can't ignore. I mean, we're approving a site plan knowing that that's the access to that property. And that, I mean, that's a fact. I mean, I just don't think we can, again, my opinion, I don't think it's something that we can just, in theory, talk about, well, if we just ignore it. I mean, how can we ignore the potential safety issue as well? I mean, we just touch base. I mean, the other thing is to really talk about the access. The fire lane helps to define that a little bit better, because there shouldn't be anybody parking there, so that should allow for the access. But I honestly think that we've got a situation where if we were to approve this without some sort of provision for that, and then this property is sold as well, then we have a situation where you've got a different owner having their cars go across this lot where Mr. Schembechler has every right to say that can't happen. And now all of these cars are on the street, which we did not take into account anything involved here with, we're approving this with the understanding that a lot of the cars are parked off the street and are over here and back of the building. I just don't see how we can take an ostrich approach and just pretend that it's not an issue. I just don't, I mean, it clearly states it in the zoning ordinance what the idea of a shared driveway is for residential use only. And I think if we didn't have a site plan in front of us, and as the applicant did, he owned both parcels, and he just did that on his own, and nobody's really overseeing it. But now it's before us. It's before us to make a decision. We have it to deal with. I don't think it's something we cannot not deal with. I just don't believe that would be correct.
I mean, one way to look at it is a non-conforming existing, and now they're coming for site plan, so a lot of people do things that make something non-conforming, and they come before, like, for example, they build a deck and they go too far out. Then they come in, they want it to be approved, then, now we say, it's too far to the side yard, front yard, and everything else. So if he's letting these people pass over not, and if it's not allowed for that common driveway, and there are cars passing over the area, they're using it for driveway, and it comes into consideration of, one, what the traffic engineer discussed, two, what the fire department discussed, because it's all the circulation of the traffic on this area, and we gotta consider where the traffic is coming from, and the traffic is coming from from the residents from that area. It's not just in, so now it's brought to our attention, so in a way, I consider it as non-conforming existing use. So you come into the planning board with a non-conforming existing use and say, well, we don't want you to think about or take any action on it.
Right.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yes.
Legally, that's what I'm thinking legally. I mean,
Oh,
we could ask the law department for it, I think, at least, staff said, maybe an easement at best, but, would that satisfy it? I don't know, I think that's what Eric came up in the conversation with, but, there gotta be, because you can say, okay, well, maybe Nick's right, maybe it's too congested, and turning this way and that way, now you're putting that driveway through there, really, and the driveway thing is set up for when someone comes in to build 2 house lots, and they don't have enough room, they put 1 driveway in.
Right.
Personally, I know it's in the code, I don't like the common driveways, but if it's there, it meets the criteria, I vote for it. Because I know it's not what my personal effects are, it's what the zoning book requires. Perfect example, we get some houses that have 10,000 square feet of land, 2 of them, they're gonna try to share a driveway, you're like, all right, who gets up first to shovel it, who goes to flout it and leaves it there, and, but if it's in the, and I've raised this before on a couple of projects that come in, they said, well, it's in the zoning book. I said, okay, I hear, we'll go along with it. So now, there's a lot of comments on the flow of the traffic on the site, and now that's being compounded by, whether you want to call it a driveway or not, but you're having cars pass on and over it. That's, to get to a city street, that's pretty much close to the definition of a driveway.
That sure is. I think, I agree.
Whether, and even whether the easement satisfies that or not, I don't know. Or if they want to consult with their attorney and, see if he'll do the easement or not, and we can refer to the law department and think if that satisfies it, I don't know, but I just, because if we do this, I guarantee people are gonna come in, you've done it before. You open up the box. And I know in the court law says everything's different because each parcel is different. You have to look at each individual case, and that's what all the case law says. Every time I read them, they say, you have to take each piece by itself. You have to look at it individually. But, once you start saying, we're letting people pass over, and it's right there. And the whole part of this site plan is the flow of the traffic.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing that we have from fire department, traffic department, city engineer, TPD staff. They're all addressing it, and they're all telling us about it. So we just, it's not like just one guy next door has one little car that he lets, drive over there once in a while. That would be something, be a different concern, but now you have all these different units coming on and off that site. So I'm not sure what the exact answer is. I wish there was an easy solution. I'm sure Jack would love to tell us an easy solution. And if they couldn't hash it out at their department head meeting, and then to throw it on our lap and say, you let us decide, and the comments are very clear, what are you guys gonna do? The question's pointed right here in the comments to us. What are we gonna do about it?
Yeah.
I think we have to stick with the zoning code. That's our guideline. If we start, not paying full attention to that in the department comments, then, so I think it's an issue. I think it has to be raised one way or another. And, even the applicant said he's not even sure if he's happy with the easement. I think that's a minimum at best. He'd want to consult an attorney, I understand that, but if he wanted to consult an attorney and ask for more time, I'd make a motion that we recommend this to the law department and get their feedback too, and then have him discuss with his attorney, get the feedback from the law department. The law department says, hey, it's in the zoning code, no, or there is an alternative, like Eric said, then fine, if they can guide us in the right direction, I'm more than happy to listen to a solution that can satisfy everybody.
Yeah. That's all right.
I'm not trying to pick ears on it, but when you see all those comments, and I'm sure you thought about it too, Jack, like, how can I satisfy this, and you're drawing it out.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to do it an easy way, I'm sure, or
I
even
mean,
a
when
kind of difficult way you come into which is the best way to do it.
I
Or they
think-
say, they have to go park on the street, or can we still do it this way without ignoring the site plan?
It might come down to the definition of common driveway, because
Yeah.
without going through the planning board, without
Yeah.
going, I could create an easement.
Yeah,
There's no lot line change.
Right.
He owns both properties, so I could go tomorrow and put a plan on record showing an access easement.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I come in front of you guys, and you're looking at the site, then okay, the easement exists,
Right.
but does that allow a common
Right.
driveway?
And if
So
we
it
had-
really comes down to the definition of common driveway.
right. And if we had, from the law department said that meets its satisfaction, Or if it doesn't, then what's the alternative? Because obviously, you know, we don't want to throw the cars out in the street if we don't have to.
Right.
But I think we want to stay within our bounds. So that's just my comments on the matter. I mean, you know,
I concur with that too. We just can't ignore this, I think. And one thing that kind of facilitates the movement of traffic, Jeff, you own both parcels, right? The apartment building and the business?
Correct.
So you can, I mean, you know, just allow that to happen, whereas if there were two separate owners, it would be a totally different situation. Kind of an interesting dilemma, I guess you might say, but I would be in favor of following our own regulations.
would you one time to consult with an attorney on that in regards to the easement part?
Well, what I'd like to see happen is we come to some sort of an agreement where I can begin with the project, even if that's putting up a fence now until we can sort out that issue and putting the tenants out on street parking until we can sort this business out. I don't want to delay the project anymore if there's a way to do that.
I don't know about anyone else. I'm not all fired up to push all those cars into the street.
Yeah.
In terms of the parking, I don't think we're on a, personally, I'm not really driven to make sure they're parking on Short Street. The other side of Short Street is the Washington School? Lincoln is the Lincoln School. That's the bus access, is up Short Street. That's where the school buses are going. Listen, my comments earlier, I don't dispute, we absolutely have authority to take this up if that's what we wish, and if there are substantive, and if the board feels there are substantive issues with the additional traffic created by those cars parking in back, then absolutely we should. I was thinking purely in terms of the legality of what we were being compelled to do purely by the language in the zoning code, what we were and were not being compelled to do. You know, if this is on the level of substance, then I take it all back. We should absolutely take it into account. But in terms of what to do,
Take it out of their hands.
you know, I'm finding myself in agreement with Mr. Chair, the chairman's last few comments about delaying this. I don't think it's quite soup yet. I think that this one might benefit from another round of opinions.
I mean, because one of the things on the last note we have was, the applicant stated he tore down the fence separating the two parcels about 10 years ago, and then maybe without a permit, to create the new driveway. The proposed redevelopment of the parcel provides the opportunity to correct this issue by perhaps separating the access of these two uses. The applicant should be encouraged to provide options to separate the apartment building access if possible, or otherwise mitigate the condition. The apartment building's driveway is not shown on the plans.
Yeah, well, is the apartment.
So I mean, that follows up right after telling us that common driveways aren't allowed in this area. I could see where the planning staff's coming on that. Jack, see any way they could do that? Have you thought about that? I'm sure you must have, right? I mean,
I tried to think of many different ways. It's landlocked,
Yeah.
the apartment.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've looked at this, and I'm sure when you started looking at it, but, you know.
Yeah.
Because I notice like when staff doesn't mention an alternative sometimes, they're like saying, we don't have an idea how to do it. They're not saying that, but they're saying, maybe you can think of it. Or sometimes they'll say, well, have you considered X, Y, and Z that would make it easier?
Yeah, we actually looked at it early on, Jim and I looked at it
Yeah.
when Jeff first came to look to expand his business. And we know it's a unique situation.
Yeah.
It's been like this for 10 years.
Yeah. I hear
It
you.
works now. We're only here because he's looking to do an addition to an existing building.
And that's what puts us on notice. Yeah.
So it's almost two options. He either fences it or he'd have to get some sort of legal relief, maybe even from ZBA. We're in front of ZBA next week. If they say they don't see it as a common driveway, maybe they make that sort of opinion on it, or Jeff talks to council and see what he
Yeah,
thinks.
I don't think the common driveway is, that's up to site plan under us, I think.
That's up to you, okay.
Yeah, I think it's our call. I don't think you get relief on the site, because that falls into site plan, Jack, you know what I mean?
Yep,
You know, I think you could mention it to them, I think they're gonna say, it's up to planning board, because it's covered under the site plan. Not the ZBA relief, I could be wrong, but, you know, I know it's covered under the site plan, so I don't know if it would double as a ZBA relief, you know?
do we need a decision from this board prior to going to ZBA?
Most of the time, they want to see what we do, because whatever conditions we put on, they automatically go into the ZBA.
Okay,
If your only two questions were the parking and the drive-through, at least you'd have an indication of where they're going with you on that part of it. I mean, say, for example, if they tell you that they're not happy with the parking situation, then what's your alternative there? Have you thought of that, or what you might do instead? Or would that be, I mean,
No,
obviously, you're hoping for relief, but they don't give it to you, what's the alternative?
right, if they really think we need 48 spaces, it's up to us to show we don't need that, and Jeff has data to back that up, and, I mean, if all of a sudden they say we feel you need it, we don't really have the ability to create 48 spaces on this site,
So, I
so,
mean, that's another thing too, if you went to them, and, you know, if they were okay with it, then at least you know which way you're going, because if they say, no, we're not gonna give you the 48, then you pretty much know what your options are from there, right?
right,
So their feedback would be helpful to you?
right, we'd either have to shrink the addition or do something totally different, but based on what we anticipate, based on the tables that Jim's put into the building and everything else on the historic use, they think we're way below that number, but we have to sell that to the ZBA.
But then you could tell them that, you know, you at the planning board, the question was, what's the use of the common drive? They, you don't wanna get legal opinion from that, if need be, if that's the wish of the board. And then have the applicant speak further with council, and then decide that. That's why we didn't approve it, you know, but we discussed a lot of the other things, you know, the traffic flow and the concerns that we had, that were met, you know, fire department want one, traffic engineer wants the other. I mean, I'm not saying who dropped who, but at least it was discussed, and we have all those concerns on the table.
Okay,
But I mean, if they're okay with what you're looking for there, then it narrows down your issues. If they say no, I don't know if that would stop your plan, or you'd have to refigure it if that's worth doing, or you'd make another decision.
right.
And
Well,
then, in the interim, while you spoke with the lawyer, if that wasn't gonna work, then we could have you back, or if we give you a future date, if it's not gonna work, then you could withdraw it, and then try to figure out another plan and come back, whatever, but just.
The
thinking
reason
out
I
options
asked
out
is
loud.
if we continued so Jeff could talk to his attorney,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that didn't impact us going to the zoning board.
I don't
Because
think it
even,
would it, Christine?
It might,
It might.
because they're going for a parking variance, but also for the use of a drive-through. And I know that the zoning board does rely on a approved site plan with conditions, because there might be a further condition after the fact
Okay.
that they may not approve the use
Yeah,
based on a condition
Yeah.
from the planning board.
so they may or may not. But usually they like to see us vote first, I know that, but at least if you went, you get their feeling on, maybe. I'm not saying they might give you an approval at that time, but they might get some feedback from them. Mr. Fischett, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I just make, Jack, just, the question on the painted fire lane. I mean, we've looked at different, projects that have come before us as similar types of, establishment. Was that specifically required by the fire department in that particular spot for that? And the reason I ask that, because you've got, I think it's the width of 34 feet to the lot line.
correct,
If you had an easement, if you shifted that over, I mean, you'd probably be looking at a variance for how close the drive or the paved area would be to the house. But if you shifted that over, so that you could have a distinct entrance and exit for Domino's, and you could have a distinct entrance and access point for the residential property that may straddle both lines, but have an easement and have it defined, would that, I mean, and again, I don't know how much space you have to work with beyond the 34 feet. Is that something you think you could work with the fire department?
well, we actually looked at it. and
Okay.
When we had the staff meeting, my concern was if someone was going to take a left into the let's say put a driveway in to access the rear for the apartment.
Right.
And someone was coming out of Domino's taking a right,
You'd have somebody possibly coming,
We're creating, it's too close of a movement.
I
know,
gotcha.
So everyone seemed to agree that was kind of a dangerous situation. We did look at trying to figure out a way to get some access back from that exit, but it just seemed like it presented a real safety concern.
That also goes to Nick's point about the access control and the traffic control. That would be, is it actually in the public's interest to have one more in and out curb cut there?
I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to just throw some ideas out there for even the applicant to think about and work with DPD, but I don't deny that, that issue as well. No.
Jerry, your point earlier about the dumpsters in the back and the access to that snow storage, would it be a good idea to, and would it be possible for the applicant for that dumpster area to be shifted south a few feet in there and then open up more of an area to get back there with the Bobcat? Instead of being in the middle two spaces, perhaps behind the right two spaces?
I looked at that. It was more, I didn't want to hug it way over to the southerly side, to the right. I just thought it might be a tough swing with the curb line there for the trash truck. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
I tried to centrally locate it to give them the most room to swing, basically, not knowing what type of, what type of truck he is that comes in to empty him.
Still, I think that you'd be able to get a couple of feet, 5 feet or so, and even that, added on to that would make a considerable difference in terms of the accessibility of that snow storage area.
I couldn't hear him with the sirens.
Member Boyle, do you mind repeating that? I didn't hear you.
If the dumpster pad could be shifted even just a few feet to the south, that would make the access to the snow storage, the rear snow storage area, much better. You can see it's tight right now.
I don't have a problem with that.
I'm not sure how many.
Right now, it's basically in line with one of the parking space. So the parking space is 9 feet wide.
Right.
And then there's 6-inch curb. So, there's at least 10 feet of open area to get back there. But I don't have, if we wanted to shift that in the dumpster pad 3 or 4 feet in a southerly direction, I'm fine with that.
I think that would be a positive change.
Mr. Chairman, I would, based on really, I think, the obligation under site plan review, given the fact that we have specific tools to work with, and the zoning ordinance is the number one reference material for us to make our decisions. And clearly that even staff and the petitioner were really struggling with trying to address this issue of the common drive. I would put this in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman, to, and I can appreciate the petitioner wanting to have some a decision sooner rather than later, but this is a serious issue. And we want to make the best decision we possibly can in this particular situation. It's very unusual. I can't recall where we've had a situation quite like this. I would make a motion that we do refer this to the law department for, further of all, clarification regarding the common drive within the city zoning ordinance in its application in this particular proposal. And suggest that even for staff to even work with the law department as far as some alternatives that may may be useful for the board to consider, and the applicant, obviously, the applicant to consider. I think that's critical, and I would, again, put that in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So therefore, first, after that, we'll need a continuance. I think, you want to, I'm saying motion requesting the matter be continued? Oh, I'm sorry, let me get my mic. I'm sorry, so do you want to make in the same motion, if we refer it to law department, make the motion that we continue this, Mr. Fischetta, as well?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and, of course, we have quite an agenda, don't we, for the,
Yeah, on the next meeting, we have 4 or 5 public hearings, which will be ahead of you, and one of them is going to be definitely time-consuming. So the next meeting after that would be June 6th.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one more comment before
Sure.
you vote?
Yep.
I would very much like to put the fence up. It simplifies the whole thing for me. I don't have to worry about tenants driving through the lot, whether I own the apartment building or not. I think the best solution for me is to put the fence up. I think the best solution for the city is for me to put the fence up. That takes that difficult decision off the table. I can proceed with my project. And I know, it's an old city with a lot of quirks, and some people are gonna have to park on the streets, but, so be it. I don't wanna have to hold up the project or go through a lengthy legal battle to try and solve that issue. It's just not a good course of action for me to take. And I think it's easier for both of us if I just put the fence up.
Anybody want to have a discussion on the question of putting the fence up? Chairman? Sure, I'll go ahead. That was you.
Yes,
Only thing, first off, Ms. Green, was there any main comments coming out of the meetings that you were present with regards to doing the fence, or is there any?
There was
fallback?
a concern from the fire department that the fence would impede access to that, because they try to have access to both sides, and so the fence prevents a second access to the apartment building.
So the other question would be, if he wants to put the fence up, it should be on the site plan, have the other departments have a chance to look at that and give comments, which would take time one way or another.
Yes.
Anybody else? Okay, I just wanted to hear from staff first, who have been involved in several, and I'll go back over here to Dick. Okay, and I'll come to Richard after.
as much as I empathize with your situation there, and that would be a simple solution,
This is the white flag.
Yes.
I think that would not be totally responsible on the part of this board to knowingly agree to allow a parking situation to be exacerbated in that neighborhood, and taking, 8, 10, 12 cars that are now parked in that lot, and just knowingly close our eyes and know that they're gonna end up on the street. So I do think that, although that would be a simple solution and allow you to continue your project, I don't think that would be responsible on our part to just say go with that.
Yeah. I mean, the other question is, if the fire department has a problem with it, and then if Nick still has a problem with it, then now we have 1 for, 1 against, now we could have 2 against. So, I mean, I know what the applicant's requesting, I don't think, by just taking the fence down, we solve the issue tonight, either way anyway, so. I don't know, if anybody else want to weigh in on the fence thing? If not, we still have a motion, we're gonna refer the matter to the law department. Next question would be, do we want a motion to continue it? And then, it's up to the applicant which way he wants to go forward.
I'll just make a comment. I agree with Richard's assessment. I don't think it's the right thing to do. Our procedures are to look at a definitive plan with what you have, what you're proposing, and have departments comment on it so we can get that feedback and make a correct decision. I don't think we can just,
No, because if they're saying the fire department's not happy with the fence coming down.
yeah, that bothers me. We just
That
can't,
may create a whole new,
yeah. We can't
access around the site.
Yeah, we can't override that, so I'm not
Okay.
in favor of granting.
So, let me go back to Jerry. Jerry made the motion, we can refer it to the law department. I think there was a second on that. Did someone second that motion?
I second it.
Okay.
I'd like to make a
With a
comment, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to make a comment on this, on the referring this to the law
First
department.
motion now is to refer to the law department.
Right. I think what we really need to hear from the law department is, we have this pre-existing non-conforming situation with the traffic circulation. We've got a site plan in which we're reviewing the traffic situation. Are we required to eliminate this non-conforming condition? Are we, is it lawful for us to issue a permit that allows this pre-existing non-conforming situation to continue?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Yep.
There's that, and then if not, then what is some suggestions?
And I know that, and I know since, Eric works with planning staff, I know he used to be in the law department, I'm sure he's gonna bring any knowledge that he had with the sit-down meeting with all the other people to the concerns to the law department, so when they discuss the matter, I mean, Eric has a working relationship with them, which is a good thing, and, knowing what the law department looks for and asks for, because Eric has given us plenty of decisions in the past on questions that we've referred to him, and then he's referred to the law department, come back to us several times, and he's even been present several times to discuss those matters for us in detail. So obviously, I would think, and Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, that Eric would speak with the law department on what the issue, because he's already looked over the plan, knows all the intricate details of it. So he would be the leeway to refer to the law department, and what, on our behalf through the planning staff, as requested the motion from the planning board.
Yes.
So the motion would come from us, from planning board to the planning staff has to make the request to the law department. Now, when they make a request for the law department, that matter goes back to, to us. I mean, a lot of times, we can make a request to the law department without even the applicant being here, without them even knowing about it. We can go and ask for a request to the law department, and, because then it's not a public opinion, they just give it to the planning board. So we could see a project, nothing to do with making a motion to consider it. I mean, at the time here, we can ask for informally for it, and they can give it back to us, because once or twice in the past, when we've asked for it, and we've talked at length with the law department, said, there's different ways to get the answer, one without being on public record, to give it, to the applicant, which was a unique situation. So we did it informally. This way it's formal, because everybody knows what we're discussing and what the one main issue is. The other one had a lot of intricate parts of it, so we did that more on an informal basis. And that's how Eric told us in the past, we could do it either way, and they'd be happy to go along with that. But I'm thinking if we refer to the law department, and if they say, give us some guidelines one way or another. And I think, like I said, I think Eric could, explain what the situation we're in, because obviously he's been at the staff meetings and he knows. And I'm sure Christina spoke with him before they wrote these minutes, these comments up. Am I correct to assume that? 'Cause I know you have Eric's name on it and everybody else's from the staff, so I'm sure this was, everybody discussing it all together at the meetings, so. So do we have any further discussion on?
Mr. Chairman, I think just the motion is to continue it to, I think because of our agenda, I think really the June 6th
Okay.
planning board meeting.
Okay. So let me just back up a little bit here. We had a motion to refer to the law department. We had a motion and a second. Do we have, what's the wish of the body for the rest of the motion? So we have a motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion carries. The next motion is to continue the matter to the June 16th meeting. Do we have a second on that matter?
Second, I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? So we'll continue it, and good luck. Hopefully, we can work out something.
Thank you very much.
Wish you well. Good luck.
That's the only way to
Thank you.
do it.
All right. This is not an easement.
So moving along, do we have any follow-ups from any of the other board members who sit on various other boards?
Yes, I have an historic board update. Our administrator, Steve Stoll, is very busy planning and implementing Doors Open Lowell that will be take place on the 14th of the month. All kinds of things going on with that. We ran our first ad in the Lowell Sun this morning.
Oh, good.
You know, it's a big event in the city and takes a lot of our time, and there'll be emails and stuff going out regarding that. It's on May 14th.
Okay, thank you.
So.
Anybody else have any follow-up? Bob?
I think you all got a letter or a reference from PPD about the Lowell Green Building Committee,
Yeah.
and we no longer have a
Yeah.
slot of a new
Right.
council that they created. I was the representative to that, and I just want to say, if I don't have to go, I'm going to forego.
Okay. Yeah, I mentioned that last time at the meeting that we had the letter. I know you weren't present, so we were hoping you weren't heartbroken.
No, it wasn't.
We don't even
Because
get a spot.
It did say you could still apply.
Yeah, I know.
So your tenure on that committee is over? as we speak?
I believe it is.
All right. Anybody else have any follow-ups? If not, Christine, do you have anything that, I know you've been very good with giving us the weekly updates, which I truly appreciate.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I think you have everything, so.
Yeah, you got the email
Do you have any
tonight.
Yeah, I
questions?
know next
Very
meeting we're
good.
gonna be a little busy, so I didn't want to put this on the same night.
Yeah, oh, no.
Yeah, it does. And I think Eric can help work with that, because, I think as far as he's concerned, he'll be able to tell them exactly what we're looking for. All right, if we don't have any further comments, many of the board members, we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Chair votes yes. We have adjourned. Good night, and thank you, everyone.